Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So Donald Trump has officially signed the big beautiful bill on the 4th of July, and this is absolutely huge because of the fact that it's basically his entire agenda. Everything he campaigned on, whether it's the extension of the tax code, talking about no tax on tips, overtime, Social Security. It goes on to fund these mass deportations. It also includes Made in America incentives that he constantly mentioned on the campaign trail. The Golden Dome to protect America is funded, and there's many things that it does. And a lot of Democrats are saying it's like a dark day in America, saying there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to go out there and lose their Medicare or Medicaid, when in reality, what this does is it strips illegal aliens from being covered under Medicaid, and on top of it establishes work requirements like several states have, Arkansas has, Georgia to a degree has, and what that does is it makes sure that people either are actively searching for employment or they just are not able to get these government benefits. Same thing goes for food stamps, which makes sense. It's common sense. If you're not willing to work, it's different if you're older than the age of 65, and of course there's exceptions for that, or if you're not physically able to, that's fine, but there's a lot of people that are out there and just gaming the system, and this makes sure that it doesn't, and it actually pays for itself, because if you use the current baseline for the tax code, which has seen our revenues increasing, by the way, yes, it will, I guess you would say, add to the deficit because you're taking certain taxes out of tips and overtime and Social Security, even though, it adds a remittance tax, which isn't going to necessarily make up for it, but it's still a very good thing that you have some sort of precedent set in that department. I think it should be higher, but what it does is it cuts over $1 trillion. Some even say $1.6 trillion in government benefits due to fraud and abuse. And what that is able to do is it kind of makes the bill pay for itself. Any increases in spending, it gets offset. So the people that are saying it's going to drive up the deficit, drive up the debt, I don't think so. You also can't have it both ways, where you're cutting a bunch of people's health care and it also drives up the debt. Now, the number one thing that this does is it has record funding for ICE, which means you're probably going to get a lot of deportations. You're probably going to get a lot more jobs, better wages. People will have easier access to getting health care from that alone, to the point where it kind of just allows for people to get employment if they're going to seek it, if they want to keep their coverage, and to, get a better job, which is going to be good for them. And what that's going to do is it's going to pay for itself and then some, because you're not going to have as much of a reliance on Medicaid as you currently have, and that's going to reduce spending. So again, Democrats can fearmonger. It's all they have. I wanted to talk about the 2026 impact, though, because this is a big bill, and this is probably the most notable bill. If you want to talk about the 2017 bills that impacted the midterms, in one way a negative way for Republicans and another way a positive. We'll discuss that, but really quickly, guys, have to tell you guys about our great friends over at Chalk, because our country just witnessed Donald Trump overcome political persecution, an assassination attempt in the entire deep state to retake the presidency with a historic victory. There's one secret ingredient that allowed him to do this, and that's testosterone. And what most people don't realize is that testosterone makes men willing and eager to take on challenges, but sadly, too many men have lost their fight, and that's how the globalists want it. They want us weak, out of shape, and full of estrogen and microplastics with low T, which is why we're excited to partner with Chalk, because they offer a whole lineup of products formulated to increase your testosterone, your energy, your focus, and detoxify your body. Ingredients in the Chalk Male Vitality Stack have been clinically studied to boost free testosterone in 87% in just 21 days. Unlike with gimmicky vegetable pills or powder, you will feel the difference, and they have the clinical studies to back it up. And right now, you can get 25% off your Chalk subscription for life. Just go to chalk.com, spelled CHOQ.com, and use the promo code REDEAGLE. That's 25% off any subscription for life, and you can cancel it any time. So, Democrats are banking on there being this massive healthcare crisis. And they're saying, well, rural hospitals might not get funded if you do this, but still the bill goes out of its way to give, billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars in a fund for rural hospitals. So to say Republicans are just like being heartless or whatever, it's not entirely true. A lot of this is fear-mongering. And when the dust settles, just like everything else they fear-mongered about, are you going to have this massive problem? Now, the fear-mongering about Obamacare worked well ahead of 2018 because Republicans actively went out there and said, we're going to repeal it. Obamacare and its approval rating skyrocketed because Republicans did not have a plan. If they just passed work requirements for Obamacare or something of that nature where you have to be seeking employment, it would not have really had much of an impact, negatively speaking. And they also made Obamacare more popular because they got rid of the individual mandate in the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and that's a whole nother bill that impacted 2018. But if you want to look at the polling for 2018, you would have to just understand that at this point, because of the fact that Republicans just did not have a health care plan in general, and it showed how weak and incompetent they were, congressional Republicans, what did that exactly do? It made them look weak, and it allowed for the Democrats to be competent and have a solid messaging and go out there and just drum up a major, major lead. In fact, they led by almost 13 points in December. If you want to look at this right here, in December of 2017, they led 49-36. They led by 13, but that's about the time the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act went through, and you saw their lead start to dwindle, and it dwindled back to around D+7, which is what the final generic ballot ended up being when you factor in uncontested races, and Republicans were able to cut that lead down at one point to almost about 3 points or so. So obviously Democrats gained traction towards the end, but that's not really the point. What we do know and what we do understand is that the Democrats had a much different point of strength arguing about why Republicans were failing on healthcare, because they could fearmonger. They didn't have a final product. In fact, if Republicans passed one of those healthcare plans that failed, the Democrats fearmongered about, even if they were not perfect plans either, I still think that Republicans would have been able to tout it as a victory of sorts, and Democrats probably would not have been able to effectively fearmonger if you didn't see some massive, drop-off or some massive healthcare crisis. So they're kind of banking on that. But again, it really doesn't allow for it. You're basically stripping states' funding to make sure that the illegal aliens are not going to be on state Medicaids. Democrats have been lying through their teeth like NPCs, saying no illegals receive, Medicaid or Medicare, but they do. It's at the state level, but federal funds go to those states. They're going to have to cut off those funds if they don't really comply, and then it's on the states. So Democrats are really hoping for that. Now, Republicans, on the other hand, they have a strong messaging point that they could hammer home depending on how this thing goes with the bill. Because when you look and you see what the bill does, it basically just codifies Trump's agenda, which is popular. People would much prefer to pay lower tax rates. They'll say it's about, the 1%, and they're the ones who benefit the most because they pay a disproportionate amount of taxes. Of course, they're going to benefit the most. If you're making $55,000 a year, you might only, get $1,000 in relief compared to what the expiration of the code would do. So that's kind of what it is. You had the permanent tax brackets at the top staying at those rates from 2017. But now the tax cuts for the middle class are officially going to be extended. They're going to be permanent. That's great to see. But now you've extended the tax cuts for a long period of time for the middle income brackets, which is huge because the average family of four would have been paying several $1,000s more in taxes if it was not for this bill. And that's kind of the messaging that Republicans need to hammer home here, because Democrats voted against that. They voted against record funding for ICE, and immigration is still an issue. Obviously, Trump is winning on it, but you still need mass deportations. You need more deportations. Democrats are dying on the worst hills imaginable regarding that because it's become a popular position. And now you look at ICE. ICE has more funding than most of the world's militaries. Will be hiring 20 times as many agents and will be unleashing a deportation machine on steroids. The Democrats are very upset about that, but in reality, it's going to benefit the country, and now it's a majority position that a lot of Americans hold, and that's why Donald Trump was able to capitalize on it. I think this whole border crisis thing really woke a lot of people up. Trump got the border under control. You have a lot of deportations, a lot of self-deportations, but now you're going to have a lot more actual deportations, and probably a lot of people are going to start to self-deport as well, and that's going to help the economy reset itself and allow native-born Americans to fill those jobs, and that's kind of the trend we've been seeing. It was completely the opposite under the Biden administration, but it's a great thing that you have this funding, and Republicans need to capitalize on it in terms of messaging because, you gave Americans the largest tax cut. Democrats wanted the largest tax hike by proxy, and Democrats wanted to make sure that ICE was not able to be funded, that we wouldn't have border security. This actually goes out there and makes it happen, and I think it's a great thing. And come 2026, you might even see a second big, beautiful bill. Mike Johnson hinted at it, and hopefully you see an increased remittance tax, and maybe certain aspects of the bill that we weren't able to finalize could finally get finalized, and that would be huge. But you're doing this now, so it's not like last minute Democrats get to fearmonger before the midterms and it's effective. And you also did something, and if the returns are positive or not negative, it's going to help out the Republicans in the midterms. And when you look at this right here, the Democrats are just going out of their way. And again, they don't have a lot of money right now. Republicans have a lot of money. Democrats don't really have that much money ahead of the midterms. But still, what are they trying to do? They're trying to go out there and challenge these Republicans, Ann Wagner, Maria Salazar, Andy Ogles, Kevin Kiley, Nick LaLotta, and Jeff Crank. So it's hilarious because all of these Republicans in 2024 won by over 10%. Donald Trump in almost every case won the district by double digits or close to it. And these are very strong Republican incumbents nonetheless. So Democrats actually think that it's worth it to waste millions upon millions of dollars in these congressional districts trying to take on very strong Republican incumbents who in many cases outperform Donald Trump on the same ticket. It's kind of just ridiculous that they would even do this. So again, I don't think they're going to get within 5 points in any of these seats, regardless of what they do. I say let them do it. You don't want to interrupt the enemy while they're making a mistake. But it's like they're in disarray. Their messaging tends to be awful. There's a lot of fear-mongering. But again, will there actually be some sort of middle America healthcare crisis they can capitalize on? I don't think so. I really don't think so. Because you have work requirements? A lot of these people in the working class that voted for Trump, guess what? They work. They have already that covered. And if they can't work as a disability, they're exempt from it. So what exactly is the problem here? It's completely ridiculous. Democrats are just upset and seething because this bill gives Donald Trump everything that he really wanted, or just about. And they're upset because, mass deportations are going to happen. That's a good thing. People are going to be able to take home more money in their paycheck. Even if the wealthy Americans, which pay more in taxes, technically get a larger cut money-wise, again, that money still gets invested back into the economy and will boost revenues and make this pay for itself. That's kind of the main point here. That's the main takeaway. So again, you look at what Donald Trump did, absolutely huge, big victory with a big, beautiful bill, and I think it's possibly going to help Republicans, but hopefully they can continue to set the narrative, because that's the one thing that a lot of non-Trump Republicans cannot do to save their lives is take the spotlight, set the narrative, especially against the Democrats who have an approval rating of like 28% on a good day. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.